Hi everybody, this is future Beatrice. After the video's been edited, I wanted to make this little intro message to remind us all of a couple things. First off, there are going to be several different donation links, charity links, and organizations that I highly encourage you to go check out and possibly support if you can to help bring relief to all of the people that have been harmed due to this ongoing global crisis. I also wanted to remind everybody that since this is a crisis that goes far beyond Eurovision, I want us to remember that this is a thing that concerns real people and their lives. I don't want my presentation of this topic to come off as dismissive or trying to be cheery about something horrible. I think my delivery is just very upbeat because I need to keep people's attention for a very long time in the form of a YouTube video where there aren't going to be a lot of visuals. More on that in a second. Anyway, that's all I just wanted to say before we start the video. Let's go. Hi, I'm Beatrice Quinn. This is EuroQuision, and this was supposed to be a video essay. You know, a thing that you make with cameras that record video for extended periods of time and don't stop doing that in the middle of scenes and takes and everything you've been trying to do for weeks on end. Yeah, I'm having such a fun time doing this. Anyway, what's that? You've never heard of me and you've never heard of EuroQuision? Well, that's okay. Not taking it personally because I'm here to talk about something you probably have heard about, maybe since November or October of last year? And now here I am. So be honest, are you here watching this video because you've been staying up to date with this whole mess for months? Or are you somebody who's a bit confused on this situation, what's Eurovision got to do with it, and what you need to be doing about it? Well, I want to start by saying that if you're somebody who wants to do something but might not know exactly what, then this video and everything I post are very much for you just as much as it is for people who follow Eurovision religiously. Because Eurovision is what brings us all here together today. All the recent noise being made in international headlines about Eurovision and a certain country's participation in it can be a lot to keep up with, let alone understand it all. There are people who watch Eurovision every year, people who pay attention to it year-round. And then there are people who hear about it when musicians across multiple continents start signing letters and petitions about it. I'm somebody who falls into the very first category without question. I pay attention to this all the time. I have a Eurovision channel that's named after a combination of the word Eurovision and my last name, Quinn. EuroQuision. Everybody point and laugh at my cringe. Done? Cool. Moving on. More on me in just a second. I want to talk to you, the myriad of lovely people who are paying attention to this silly thing called Eurovision. And let's actually start with that assumption. Is Eurovision silly? Is it even serious at all? Well, for a long time, the easiest answer to that question was, of course it's not serious. Look at it. We're talking about a show that in the span of 10 years gave us this, and this, and this. So you wouldn't be wrong for being exposed to something like this and saying, well, this is one of the most deeply unserious things I've ever seen in my life. However, Eurovision being silly isn't a trait, it's more like a choice. Artists and countries can choose to be silly or shocking in their presentation at Eurovision just as easily as they can try to be serious, like this, or this, and this. Justice for Bosnia and Herzegovina. Anyway, trust me when I say that Eurovision isn't always silly or unserious. And to think it's not worthy of something as serious as a boycott, it only does you a disservice, as well as a disservice to the people in the world who need help and recognition. So I know this topic might sound big or scary, or at the very least, just too complicated. However, let me reassure you that this video, audio book, and the action of boycotting Eurovision does not require you to be a sudden expert on centuries of geopolitical history. It doesn't require you to be an expert on songwriting or be a Eurovision historian. You can boycott Eurovision exactly how you are right now. So this video is going to be as practical and educational as I can possibly make it because that's the reality behind boycotting. By boycotting, no matter what it is and what for, it's something actionable that people can easily comprehend. In fact, this script you're listening to right now is a script that I wrote after I completed my first draft, and I took it to Twitter, and I read it to all my friends, mutuals, and a lot of people who wanted to listen and contribute. By doing this, I got the chance to hear so much feedback and ideas to make this video clearer and better for everyone. And if you're somebody who has comments or suggestions on anything I do in the future with the EuroQuision channel and the things that I write, please follow me over on Twitter, subscribe here, because boycotting Eurovision is not the only content I'm gonna be making. But it is the content I'm making right now, so strap in. And before we really get into it, I wanna address the question of who am I and why am I trying to talk to you right now? Well, for anybody who missed it, hello, hi, I'm Beatrice Quinn. My pronouns are she, they. I'm a Taurus, and no, I don't wanna see you dance. This is EuroQuision. This is my dedicated home for online publications and media, all about the Eurovision Song Contest. I've been a deeply, autistically committed Eurovision fan since 2016, and I'm just as obsessed with the songs and performances and scores of Eurovision, just as much as I'm obsessed with the geopolitical history and the influence that has on the contest, with things like voting patterns and other statistical facts. See, the autism, that makes me interested in all the numbers and the points and the colorful flags. And my master's degree in musical theater writing makes me interested in the theatricality of it all. As for me, I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, I'm a pianist, I am a writer, I'm a lyricist, I teach piano, I teach voice, blah, blah, blah. The point is, I may be an American, but my blood runs red, white, and... So in the future, the Eurovision content I'll be making is a bit more fun, sure, so to say. I'll make videos about my rankings, which stage of the 2010s is the best, or who had the best slow-mo dance break in 2023. Hint, it's not Poland, do not even start. This video essay, and a few others that I'm writing at the moment, however, they take a look at very serious matters going on, and they affect the lives of real people outside of Eurovision. And despite how silly somebody assumes Eurovision is on its own, trust me when I say that in certain contexts, it can be really serious. But I promise by the end of this video, you will be able to do the following things. A, you will know the easy, practical ways to effectively boycott Eurovision. B, understand why we're boycotting Eurovision. And C, you'll know how Eurovision makes its money. So let's begin our journey with a little trip down Abba Lane and talk about the... Money, money, money. Must be funny in the rich man's world. What do we think about when we use the term boycott, right? One of the assumptions that we make is that this has something to do with money and where we should or should not be spending it. And more often than not, you'd be correct. Historically, across countries and cultures, economic boycotts are a practical and effective way to influence and bring about positive change for many reasons. Black Americans are discriminated against on the bus? Strike! The government of France makes any unpopular decision whatsoever? Strike! You knock down all the pins in Wii Bowling? Boycotts are a rallying cry, and they're a call to action. Like I mentioned in my introduction, many kinds of people are coming together around Eurovision. Turns out 2016's slogan was more of an omen. Eurovision professionals and mega fans find themselves in the same spaces, both digital and physical, with people who might be paying attention to this contest for the first time ever, and for a very good reason. And I'm sorry if I'm getting ahead of myself. You might be shouting at me, well, can you at least tell me why we're boycotting before you explain the entire economic structure of the world's largest song contest? And to that I would say, sorry, yes, that's a great question. Here's the answer. We are boycotting Eurovision 2024 due to its inclusion of the State of Israel as one of its competitors, and for many reasons beyond this. As a member-led organization, the European Broadcasting Union, referred to as the EBU, decided to remove Russia from the 2022 contest after its invasion and declaration of war against fellow EBU member and competitor Ukraine. While we need to understand the ways this conflict is different from that of Israel and the recipient of its violence, this was a precedent set on the part of the EBU itself after international pressure from audiences and EBU broadcasters to make a public decision against Russia's violence. We understand that Eurovision is not representative of a country's government or its entire population, but world events can and have reached points of such severity that innocent lives begin to be harmed. We live in an unpeaceful world, and Eurovision is supposed to be a celebration of unity, peace, and love through music. This message cannot be upheld when a supposedly apolitical organization and its members take action against one member for severe geopolitical violence of any kind and not another. This complacency is hypocritical and unfortunately comes at a time when Israel's broadcaster and government have made clear and intentional decisions to politicize their participation as well as interfere with fellow competing countries and their selections. Whew, okay, I hope that was plain and simple English for everybody, because I really only want to say this once. People have asked me, why do you want to punish the citizens of Israel? It's not their fault. Or, you wouldn't have said a word about Azerbaijan, so what about them? That second one, more often than not, comes from people who are actually sick of hearing me talk about Israel, and they want to play some sort of like gotcha card and expect me to shut up, when in reality, we can talk about both of them. In fact, we will talk about both of them. But that's not what this chapter is for. This chapter, we are understanding the most influential factors, not only of Eurovision, but the entire world. And unsurprisingly, that's money. Money is something I hate. I hate it when I had it. I hate it when I don't have it. That is my own personal feeling and my opinion, because I, like many, many people, see the moral and ethical wrongdoings that happen in the world simply because of money. Once again, I'm an American, horrifying, disgusting, I know, but trust me when I say that there isn't a single law that any of these sentient vacuum bags have passed based on stupid shit like ethics or values since they took office. No, they'd rather spend their flaky, lead paint chipped-filled lives taking money from businesses and billionaires and lobbyists to pass whatever fucking legislation they enjoy the most. This is not an American exclusive problem, I know. I'm just saying money talks. Sadly, Eurovision very much works the same way. Now, I don't want to sound like Eurovision costing money to put on is a bad thing. It's an obvious thing. A music competition television show featuring countries from all around the world being broadcast to 200 million people, also all around the world. You know, some countries have to choose between spending money on this versus, I don't know, infrastructure. But anyway, a lot of money goes into Eurovision. Therefore, an economic boycott is the most effective thing to do, right? Well, even though we just started this chapter, it's already going to get muddy. Something that really shouldn't be a surprise to this point is that Moroccan Oil, the biggest financial sponsor and partner of Eurovision since 2019, is Israeli-owned and operated. The EBU uses the sponsorship to help finance and produce the contest, which makes them complicit not only in aiding the economy of Israel, but also in showing permissive bias to give Israel special privileges and passes from punishment. For some excellent videos diving deeper into that, I will happily direct your attention to the bio, where 2 videos are linked. Your homework from me is to go watch Verilybitchie and ESC Gabe talk their talk and give them a sub. Do it in your cool. As for this video, all we need to know is what I just stated. Millions of Israeli dollars go into the pockets of the EBU every year, and, you know, Israel gets this get out of genocide free card to perform on the world's large live musical stage. Therefore, boycott that shit. Easy. And really, the argument can very well end there. However, that doesn't really cover all of Eurovision's financial bases, so to say. Brands aren't the only things that make Eurovision go round. Not only are there 2 other commercial sponsors, Bailey's and Norwegian Cruise Lines, but there are 2 more profitable avenues Eurovision has. And you might think, wait, there's more money? Is colonizer hair oil the best version of coffee, or an expensive case of seasickness? Is that not enough money? And no, it's not enough. There's you. Well, there's you in the audience. Tickets. I'm talking about ticket sales. And as we know, having a live music event would look real stupid with a room full of empty seats. Thankfully, boycotting by not buying tickets is super easy. They're expensive, and on top of that, there's traveling from all over the world and trying to snag an overpriced hole in the somewhat frozen ground of Malmo for you to sleep in while you're there. So the plan is simple. Don't buy tickets, save your money for once, and Eurovision performs to an empty room, and they take a hit to their wallets. And what do you mean they sold out in a day? Oh, okay. Actually, before I get in a huff, 2 things are true. Yes, tickets did sell out in one day, but we did not know who was going to be officially competing in Eurovision 2024 at that time. Now, I don't say this as an excuse or a pass to anybody who bought tickets and now feels bad about it. What I am saying is that we were duped. We've been speckeldorfed. Because this is a really weird catch-22, right? While many of us should have known more about what was going on before October 7th, tickets to Eurovision are hard to get. They're a big financial commitment, and if you're stuck questioning whether or not Genocide Barbie is going to be there, you could have easily missed your chance to get a ticket. This is why I'm not mad or upset at anybody who bought tickets, because ultimately this was a shit business practice, and the money heads of the EBU chose to do this purposefully before announcing the competitors. And this isn't just a claim I'm pulling from thin air. You don't have to look too far back to see that every year since 2016, Eurovision tickets went on sale after the competitors had been announced. Ticket sales usually began much later in the season, and the latest usually began around March or April, and the earliest was December or January. And by the time those tickets went on sale, we would have already heard the majority of the competing songs. But no, not for 2024. Tickets were dangled in front of our face in mid-November, and they were sold out in a day, all before Israel was announced among the lineup in December. Clearly, some very calculated business moves were made to get a huge chunk of Eurovision consumer money before the message of boycotting really had a chance to gain momentum. For context, I began my discussions and my calls to action about Israel possibly being in Eurovision 2024 in early November of 2023. I admit I did not call for a boycott immediately because I had no reason to, at least nothing concrete. Israel was up in the air, and no powers that were, deciding things one way or another for a long time were doing anything. For context, it took barely a few weeks for broadcasters to begin threatening to boycott if Russia wasn't removed from 2022. But October 7th happened, and we all waited and tried to get someone to say something as everything else proceeded to happen after that, but we got crickets. And now here we are in the spring of 2024 telling people how to boycott Eurovision. But that's okay. You know why? Because the overwhelming majority of viewers of Eurovision, they watch from home, not the stadium, and you don't have to pay $300 to sit and watch your TV, right? Well, let's talk about these broadcasters. The countries, I said broadcasters, that get up there on the stage to sing and give each other points. Yeah, those countries paid millions of dollars to be up on that stage for 3 minutes, 6 minutes if you're lucky, and 9 minutes if you're the winner. The entrance fee to compete at Eurovision varies by country paying their, quote, fair prices to their economic size, as detailed in Eurovision's own FAQ on their website. These fees fluctuate between 100,000 euros to nearly 20 million if you're hosting the damn thing. And that makes these broadcasters, what? Say it with me, class. Complicit. Hooray! Sorry to say that you're not even safe in your own house. The collective organization that is the EBU, they came together and they already paid those millions of dollars, and that was all before the tickets went on sale, before you, the consumer, had a chance to contribute. This is another catch-22. Does that make this a catch-44? I don't know. Where there is power still to boycott Eurovision as a consumer. That power is to not buy tickets when they come out in later waves. Don't stream any of the videos on the official Eurovision YouTube, and don't buy any merch. And on top of that, don't watch Eurovision through your broadcaster on TV, because that will show a drop in ratings and viewers. If those drop, if the profit drops, and if Eurovision isn't profitable or becomes too expensive or a risky investment, people stop showing up. But on the flip side, this might make people think, well, is boycotting Eurovision even worth it at this point? They've decided to let Israel in, they've made millions of dollars from the TV studios and the commercial sponsors, what am I supposed to do? Well, if you're one of the people thinking this, that's okay, that's a reasonable reaction. But that's also what Eurovision prefers its audience to feel like. Tired of all the politics. Someone who thinks that what's done is done and that's it. However, trust me when I say that's far from it. Just venture beyond money with me for a second, because physical currency, that's not the only kind of currency that Eurovision and Israel care about. There is the currency of public perception. And this part very much involves you. If no one has told you this directly, allow me to be the first. Boycotting Eurovision does not mean ignoring Eurovision. Two separate words. This distinction might be hard for some people to get, and that's okay. For example, when the BDS, more info on them in the description, called a public boycott for McDonald's, people finally had a worthy excuse to ditch Mickey D's flat, tasteless burgers and fries that have always been worse than Wendy's. Don't fight me, I know I'm right. Anyway, a few months later, and we've got drops in stock, drop in profits, and a level of desperation that brought back the snack wrap. Do you know how bad it has to be to get the snack wrap back? Do you know what circle of hell we're in? At least the 5th circle. But let the record clearly show, boycotting works. BDS efforts can work. And in the case of McDonald's, all we had to do was realize that better food options exist, and we treat McD's like it never existed, easy peasy. However, Eurovision's not a McDonald's, as in it's not a singular business, it's not a singular entity. Eurovision is actually many, many things. Eurovision's a TV show, but it's also a contest. It's also a branch of major international tourism. It's a platform that guarantees an audience of 200 million people. There's winners, losers, legacies, tickets, press tours, and I shall only briefly mention the dedicated fan base it has across the world. Trust me, I know we're a lot. All of that said, McDonald's is a restaurant. It sells food. If people ignore it completely, they don't sell food. No sell food, no sales, no money, mission accomplished. In the case of Eurovision, all of the things I mentioned don't disappear if we decide to ignore them. Just like there will still be people who, go to McDonald's, there will be people who choose to consume Eurovision and give them their money in some form or another. And here's the important difference between these examples. People still go to McDonald's because, they think a burger isn't that serious or political. Meanwhile, the people who want Israel to stay in Eurovision and have everything be apolitically sanitized, they're the ones who are going to choose to stick around and watch Eurovision as normal. One thing I will add is that we know that the international perception of the violence being carried out in Palestine is one that faces the enormous uphill battle of censorship and misinformation, mainly from the powers that control distribution of said information. We all know to a painful degree just how desperate, persistent, and creative Israel can be in their propaganda. But that's not all that I mean. We see all the ways that Western news media omits, hides, or edits information, and the people trying to talk about this get cut off or censored. There's a frightening amount of people across the whole world that legitimately have no idea what's going on, let alone why Eurovision has to play a part in it. So not only are the bad people doing bad things, using every tool at their disposal to seem innocent, they're hoping and depending on people staying in the dark so no one notices all the, bad things they're doing. This is one instance where ignoring Eurovision would actually help Israel and their efforts, because Israel has existed in Eurovision for a very long time, but why now are we demanding their exclusion? Well, personally, what I can say is that I have an entire video essay in the works answering that very question, but it would be far too long for one chapter of this video essay. The short answer boils down to, we should have been discussing Israel's participation and removing them long before now, and it's okay to admit that. It's a fault, it was an error, but it's okay to admit it. And it's necessary to admit that because it reminds us to stop waiting by and start demanding change. I'm someone who used to enjoy Eurovision as normal, never giving Israel's presence a second thought. Now I'm literally making my first video essay on my Eurovision platform all about boycotting Eurovision. Times change, people change, and we're all here now. That's what matters. On the note of talking about Israel earlier, there have been some people doing that, actually. The BDS, the fine folks that we brought up not too long ago, they led the boycott of Eurovision 2019 when it was held in Israel. Unfortunately, the global discussion of Israel was not being had as much as it is now, and the boycott didn't really end up being so big or have a visible impact. And let me be extremely clear that the BDS's boycott of 2019, it was not a failure, nor does that make them unqualified to talk about Eurovision. That was the fault of myself, the world, and many people who either refused to listen or just didn't know what was going on. Just like now, huh? So this time around, I'm doing what I can to try and help make this as visible and impactful as possible. For, quote, visible impact, we can also use 2019 as a good example. Remember that happy little techno, metal, rock, queer, BDSM, anti-capitalist band from Iceland? No? Well, the EBU sure does. Yup, those guys. In the act of holding up just a few flags with the name of a country on them, RUV, Iceland's broadcaster, was fined 5,000 euros for violating Eurovision's apolitical values and their banned flag list. That's right, banned flags. A contest that is, totally not political, also happens to have a list of flags that you can't fly, and yet some come with harsher penalties than others. When Armenia held up the flag of Artsakh, they received sanctions from the EBU, but nothing close to a fine of thousands of euros. Now, some people think that removing Russia was the first time the EBU ever had to make an outward punishment to one of its competitors for breaking a political rule, but no. That was Iceland in 2019, so while songs may have been removed for political undertones, removal from the EBU or fines of thousands of euros, they're a step above, and they don't happen as often. Hatrid, in my professional opinion, is a class act example of how to protest Eurovision. Now, was Hatrid's act completely good and honorable? Not quite, actually, because the BDS expressed their disagreement with Hatrid still traveling to Tel Aviv, contributing to the economy of Israel, and, that's a 100% fair critique. However, with the gift of almost 5 years of hindsight now, I think we can all at least observe and discuss the ways that this one moment changed the historical trajectory of Eurovision forever. Like, it's one thing if they held up flags for Palestine if the contest were in France, or Bulgaria, or somewhere else. But they held up Palestinian flags in Israel, while knowing it was on the banned flags list. So, not only was this gutsy, it was also necessary in lowering Eurovision's apolitical curtain. The reason Eurovision has a list of banned flags is that they know their competitors, which are geopolitically defined, could have potentially volatile reactions to certain flags, and the EBU just wants things to stay friendly, right? Well, it's more like the phenomena I described earlier. Just like Israel doesn't want the rest of the world knowing or talking about the terrible things they're doing, Eurovision doesn't want its audience to remember the existence of Palestine during the show. Or more likely, they don't want to upset Israel in their Palestine-free playpen. I'm not saying that Eurovision fans and organizers would have never started talking about Israel without Hatrid's demonstration, but I don't think it's unfair to say that Hatrid definitely fucking helped. And what I think Hatrid can be best remembered for is not necessarily the best way to boycott if we're thinking about this in economic terms, but even the BDS recognizes that there's more to boycotts than just the economic kind. There are cultural and academic boycotts, and Hatrid, in a way, they kind of boycotted the culture of Israel's undisputed presence in Eurovision by showing the world the thing they're most afraid of: the victims of Israel's own violence, and by extension, accountability for that violence, responsibility, blame. We currently exist in a world where the corrupt people leading the state of Israel are co-opting Judaism to justify and defend their horrific violence, and they want us, the rest of the world, to either support it or just shut up and leave them alone. And obviously we don't support it, we can't, but we also don't want to leave them alone either. Again, with the gift of hindsight, I can understand the BDS's disapproval of Hatrid in 2019 and all the other Eurovision artists still going to Tel Aviv in the first place. It was a bad look. But we would be legitimately foolish not to think that Hatrid wasn't a great catalyst. To this day, people share pictures and clips of this moment as a kind of calling card, a sort of, look at what these people did. Turns out we should think about Palestine inside the bubble of Eurovision. And it's there that we remember what we're doing all of this for in the first place. We're not doing this because we want to take out our anger or revenge on the country of Israel. We don't want to censor their artists. We don't want to censor their citizens. Nothing like that. I understand how people might feel that this is what we're doing, but that's only if you look at the effects of this boycott and not the cause. What's caused us to get to this point is that there's a country currently being wiped out, along with the lives and the homes of the people who lived there. One side gets to frolic through the undisturbed streets of Tel Aviv, excited to perform in Eurovision, and the other side is burying their children had they not already been buried in the rubble of their homes. Eurovision, should we choose to ignore it completely, would become one of the most powerful tools in Israel's arsenal. This show isn't just about sharing 3 minutes of music. It's an attempt to put on a fresh coat of paint for your country in the eyes of the world. We know many, many ways countries other than Israel have done this, but this is the year where we, the people of the world, have to say, we're done. We cannot forget the people fighting for their lives. We can boycott Eurovision without allowing it to return to an apolitical bubble where Israel gets to stage whatever disingenuous message they want to the world with no pushback. It would be foolish and irresponsible and unethical at this point in time to think that Eurovision is beyond salvaging or not worth protesting. This isn't a burger joint. This isn't a coffee shop. This is a show bigger than the Super Bowl, the Grammys, the Oscars, and many other self-aggrandizing Western media designed to celebrate who's best at turning art into capital gain. If we ignore Eurovision, simply put, Israel wins. Any moment that Israel gets to have peace and absolvement from their atrocities is something we cannot allow. So that's why I'm here. That's why you're here. And that is why we're talking about Congratulations! You've made it. You've arrived at the part of the video that the title promised you. Truly, thank you for bearing with me this far. My hope with the first 2 chapters is to properly educate and shed light on the ways that Eurovision works and how ignoring it completely shouldn't be the conclusion we land on. To me, we need to land on 3 conclusions in one, which are, don't give Eurovision your money, you gotta understand how something as big as Eurovision works, and you have to refuse to grant Israel the privilege of an apolitical platform to spread deliberately crafted political messages to the entire world. Maybe it's the 17 years I spent being Catholic talking, but it's a very holy trinity of conclusions. Each is a separate set of knowledge that comes together to create the megazord that is Boycott Eurovision. Sorry, my Catholic joke became more of a Power Rangers joke. I don't know how that happened. Moving on. Step 1. Boycott Eurovision. I know I touched on all of these things so far, but I'm going to list them out right here, all in one place. First, do not give Eurovision your money. Don't buy any more tickets, do not sell your tickets if you already bought them, and don't give your views and attention to the Eurovision YouTube channel. Most artists share their music videos on their own YouTube channels, so go support the artists you like in that method instead. Also, Eurovision doesn't make money from the streams of the artists on their Spotifys either, so don't worry about that. And if you really, really, really want to watch a music video that was only uploaded to the Eurovision channel, don't worry, I have a little present for you in the description to help with that. Consider it a fun link that helps you borrow a video onto your hard drive. Also, you heard me right about those tickets you bought. Just because we don't want Eurovision to make a profit doesn't mean you should. And I'm not trying to say this to be mean or holier than thou because I'm broke. Firstly, I don't buy tickets because I live in America, and I'm not going to depress you all by getting into the details of why I will never be able to financially leave this country, even just for leisure. Secondly, I fully explained how we got the rug pulled out from under us by a shady business decision. Yes, it's really unfair. We didn't know the competitors before we bought the tickets, but what's done is done. And here's the thing, if you feel guilty about buying the tickets and you're doubting whether or not you should go to the contest, I'm not upset with you. I'm upset with the people who bought tickets and either didn't care when Israel got announced or they never cared to begin with. Those are the people I wish they would feel a little more guilty about how easily they can turn off an ethnic cleansing from their brain to watch Hurricane fail to qualify, but they don't feel guilty. So, if you're somebody that does care and you want a suggestion of what to do, it's not the only thing you have to do, but here's my personal suggestion. Don't go. Just throw away the ticket because what's done is done and stay home. Save your money. Don't give it to the economy of Malmo or the economy of Eurovision. And you might think, but shouldn't I still go to protest in the crowd? We could lead a chant or boo. And I get it, that's a very tempting thing to do. However, here's a few things to know. Eurovision is aired on a delay, so if anything goes wrong, they can cut to a pre-recorded dress rehearsal performance. Also, we know they have anti-booing technology to suppress upset crowds. The only part of Eurovision that is broadcast completely live is the televoting sequence, since that obviously can't be a pre-recorded result to cut to, hence why Hatrid did what they did when they did it. But you know what's worse than some suppressed booing? Empty seats. Yeah, if you don't believe me, then tell me why the Oscars, the Tonys, and the Grammys all have seat fillers on standby should Taylor Swift need to hop on her jet to fly to the open bar downstairs. Because empty seats on television are noticeable and they're horrible. Elected leaders of my own country literally lie repeatedly about crowd sizes and turnouts to avoid people seeing their lies in action. An empty crowd isn't something you can cover up with an anti-boo technology or cutting to the pre-recorded rehearsal. That's why the most effective thing to do with that ticket you've purchased is to not go. Don't sell it to pad your own pocket and give the chance to attend to somebody else who doesn't care about Israel being there. Speaking of watching Eurovision, you can still do that, but ethically. Now, the word ethically is actually a lot more practical than you think. Remember to utilize that special gift waiting for you in the description, but beyond that, do not watch Eurovision on television through your national broadcaster or through the Eurovision YouTube channel. See, these broadcasters need to feel the error of paying all that money to participate rather than withdrawing, which they could have done for months but chose not to. As for the semifinals and grand final themselves, I will personally be streaming them on a brand new EuroQuision official Twitch channel the day after each broadcast. I'm doing this so that there is a practical and impactful way that I can consume Eurovision without contributing to it. This is still something that people should enjoy and celebrate for what it can be. A show about amazing musicians, amazing performances that unite the world. However, we are not obligated to do that in the ways that Eurovision as a consumerist product wants us to. They want us to buy tickets, they want us to buy their merch, they want us to ignore the politics, and they want us to buy votes. And I'm here to say that we are not going to do literally any of that. And I'm sorry, that's another band-aid I have to rip off. No televoting. Why? Guys, it costs money. Plain and simple. Now, I understand how and why this can worry people. There's the concern that people have shared with me that Zionists could mass vote and sway the results, or there's a chance for SIM card buying and fabricating votes. I understand all of that. I don't want to say that's not a risk, and I don't want to say that's not a valid worry. The sad reality is that in the effort to properly boycott Eurovision, that means allowing ourselves to separate our economic impact from Eurovision. And since televoting is economic, that means we don't touch it. As for the results, they will be what they are. And I don't say this to imply that Israel's definitely gonna cheat or win because they have an inflated pity vote from the viewing audiences of the world. This, in my very professional opinion, it's just not gonna happen. They're not gonna get this feared political pity vote. First, even if Israelis can buy SIM cards or televotes from other countries, they won't win. Remember when Azerbaijan did that and they still lost? Cheating and losing? Come on. And that was with a song that was actually pretty good. Hurricane does not even do that part right. As for political sympathy, I'm not too worried about that either, because what happened with Ukraine in 2022, there was international sympathy the entire world, especially in the West, showed towards Ukraine and against Russia. This time around, it's not so clear-cut of, oh, whose side should I be on? And, well, that's because of all the noise and attention that people around the world have been bringing to Israel's violence. So even if a casual viewer of Eurovision watches the show live on the night of, I really don't think they're going to see Israel and go, oh, how touching, they're still here despite it all, I'll vote for them. No, they're going to cringe and go, ooh, they're still here? Despite it all? Is that girl on stage not in some extreme danger just by being here? I might just vote for Sweden and keep my head down. Morbidly, this is kind of a way that the bystander effect could work to Israel's disadvantage. This will be harder for them to avoid the longer the rest of our community keeps protesting and spreading the word both inside and outside of Eurovision. So I know not televoting has some genuine worries behind it, and I don't think you're foolish for being worried. I'm still worried, even with everything I just said. What's hardest to accept about this year's Eurovision is that it's going to end up to be a litmus test for humanity, or at least think the chunk of humanity that watches Eurovision. The litmus test or question at hand is, can Eurovision successfully be protested and boycotted into forcing positive change? Or will it be successfully co-opted by state governments and they can succeed in their plans to propagate whatever they want to 200 million people? That second outcome will only happen if Israel wins the competition, which I severely doubt they can. And I have more faith in the first outcome because we've seen it happen before, multiple times. Yeah, Russia got removed in 2022, but we also bullied Eurovision out of that asinine qualifiers announcements change last year. And we can now disrupt the status quo of Eurovision and its Israel-dependent economy to a point where they're forced to change or face the possibility of being disregarded completely by its own competitors. Eurovision will notice their televote numbers going down, no matter which song people are voting for. In a way, ensuring a drop in things like broadcaster viewership, televoting numbers, televoting profits, this is the kind of thing Eurovision is afraid of and cannot ignore. But we are fans of Eurovision who care not only about the contest, but the world. And that is who should be the real audience of Eurovision, not the people who treat it as this miraculous political vacuum where having to worry about a nation's ethnic cleansing of somebody else is no concern. Like, for real, ask yourself, why do you think that you want or even deserve a special place where you don't have to deal with North America, the UK, and France funding the cleansing of innocent people at the hands of a Eurovision competitor? Last I checked, some of y'all watching this video live in the countries I just mentioned. I would know, clearly. My tax dollars, your tax dollars, and all of our complicity only allows Israel to take more innocent lives with no consequences anywhere. Removal from something as ridiculous as Eurovision should be the bare minimum, but here the fuck we are. In a world where you were the one who suddenly loses their home, or maybe every single member of your family all in the span of a moment, I guarantee you wouldn't want to hear anybody complaining that thinking about your suffering and your loss is getting in the way of them enjoying a 3-minute song about Estonian dads doing drugs. Like, I'm sorry if I sound like the big fat meanie who says you have to care about ethnic cleansings not only in the world, but also in Eurovision because the people doing the cleansing are in Eurovision. I know a lot of people debate that with the excuse, a government is not its people, or the artists wishing to represent their country in Eurovision shouldn't be punished, but those aren't the issue here. The issue is that Khan, Israel's broadcaster that took the Eurovision reins starting in 2018, is an entity that's governed by people appointed to these jobs by people in the Israeli government. On top of that, we have multiple sources of the songwriters behind Hurricane just straight up admitting that their narrative shaping intention was always there and still is. They just had to get the words just right. No matter how you spin it, Khan is here for the down and dirty. They want to be political, and the longer Eurovision waits to make the right decision, the more backlash and disrepute they face. So let that word be your mantra, disrepute. You know, the thing that the EBU claims to hate so much. Everything they've done or refused to do is on them. And that's why we're here now. Use the tips I've given you as your tools and go out there and disrepute this shit. Because only when we're silent will we be ignored. Once again, thank you all for being here, and thank you for deciding to listen to me and hopefully deciding to help in any way that you can. As excited as I am to share my first EuroQuision video, I want to end by echoing that this is a time of celebration as well as crisis. Eurovision, music, diversity, those things are all the things that should always be celebrated. If we lose art, we lose musical storytelling, we lose each other. And that's why we need to talk about Palestine. That's why we're holding Eurovision responsible in very practical ways. In the future, yes, I'll be making fun, opinionated, exciting stuff wherever and whenever I can because Eurovision is what I love, full stop. It's a privilege I have to use my platform and build up EuroQuision to what I want it to be, as well as what it needs to be. That sounds cheesy, it sounds corny, I don't care. It's what I believe and what I'm going to be doing about it. If you want to support me and EuroQuision personally, I have a Patreon that's brand new and ready for y'all. If you like this and you want to hear more stuff, no matter the genre, consider subscribing and or joining my Patreon, where the first 50 patrons will activate and be given access to the EuroQuision Discord. Woohoo! This will be something a different tier of patrons can get later, but the first 50 patrons who only pay $1 will get added to the Discord for free the day it launches. And once again, thank you for rolling with this video essay just turned essay. I'm going to try and get better equipment overall in the future. Maybe this will take on a video format. I hope it takes on a video format because I have so many cute outfits I want everybody to see. I'll probably like throw in a few here or there. Look at me, look at my clothes. Anyway, thank you again for being here. Free Palestine now, then, and always. And don't give Eurovision your money.